Again, Catherine, we're not in that room, but we're getting some pretty good details from the folks who are. Look, I think it's worth reestablishing, and we've talked about this throughout the day before we got on the air. Paying hush money is not a crime. That's not what's at issue here. It's the underlying, what they say are the underlying facts of this and how it was pursued. But our folks say that when David Pecker walked into the room, Donald Trump craned his neck. It was almost as if, this is their own take on what they saw, he was trying to make eye contact with them. How much of this kind of stuff, and it's going to happen again and again and again, Donald Trump knows most of the people and, in fact, was very close to some of the people who will be on the stand for the prosecution. How much, in your experience, do jurors pay attention to that, and can it influence them?
They pay attention to everything in the courtroom. So you always, or you should, as a lawyer, be trained to don't do anything that's going to be out of the ordinary, because the jurors are going to look at you.
What would it be out of the ordinary?
You know, you don't want to be like, well, I always say, as a lawyer, don't ever let them see you sweat. If a witness explodes in the stand, no big deal. You take it that way. You don't want the witness, the jurors, to know that something went wrong, particularly on cross. And just to add on to the tactics about having Pecker testify first, remember, now, the defense has a long time to prepare their cross-examination. So he testifies today. They're going to spend a lot of time researching what he said. Tomorrow, they have off on Wednesday. So the defense is going to have an extraordinary amount of time to prepare their cross-examination of David Pecker.
Do you think that they will consider the fact that this is the National Enquirer, that they were paying people off? He's acknowledging that it was in his control. Here he says, it's on our screen, I had final say on the celebrity side. Are they not supposed to, but they just might consider that when they're assessing his credibility or what he has to say?
They will, but they'll also assess that he was a friend of Donald Trump and did what Donald Trump wanted. The defense wants them to think the other way. This is just someone who is a sleaze. The National Enquirer pays for it. That's what he does. And so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be the battle between the defense and the prosecution over credibility. How credible is the prosecution witness? And
I don't think, Andrea, that we have ever seen an interview with David Pecker. He has never come out in public like most of the other people who have come out and they've given interviews, not David Pecker.
Well, they tied him up very early as a prosecution witness.
Yeah.
He reached an agreement with them. He's probably one of the first people that they went through when they were deciding whether or not to pursue the case, a case that, let's explain, the previous DA, Cy Vance, had decided not to prosecute.
The zombie case.
So
it kept coming back to life.
Which is one of the issues that Donald Trump, has made against them. I wanted to ask Chuck also, refresh us about the hush money case, that simply the precursor, the predecessor. This is about falsifying documents to keep embarrassing details away from the public and to interfere or influence an election. Prosecutors don't necessarily need to prove that Donald Trump was personally involved in falsifying those documents. They just to compare it to sort of last week to a husband still being guilty if he hires a hitman to kill his wife, which was a rather aggressive way to describe him. But talk about how this becomes a felony.
Yeah, well, let me take this in two parts, if I may, Andrea. So first, it's useful to think about conspiracy law. And even though Mr. Trump is in charge with a conspiracy, the prosecutors said in their opening statement that a conspiracy existed between Mr. Pecker, Mr. Cohn, and Mr. Trump, perhaps others. And in a conspiracy, not every conspirator has to do each and every act. I think you have 4 people in the studio with you today, counting you. And if you all decided to rob a bank, one person could case the bank, another person could drive the getaway car, somebody could buy the ski masks. Each of you, one person would go into the bank, perhaps with a gun, and take money from the tellers. You've committed a conspiracy to rob a bank, but you've all done different things. And so whether or not Mr. Trump actually, made the entries in the ledger is absolutely beside the point from the perspective of conspiracy law. Conspiracy also gives the prosecutors another advantage, an evidentiary advantage, because statements that are made by a conspirator during the conspiracy in order to further the conspiracy are admissible in the conspiracy. So That's essentially what you're looking at. To your first question, Andrea, Mr. Trump is charged with the falsification of books and records, illegal under New York law. That's typically a misdemeanor. What makes it a felony is if he did the falsification, ordered the falsification of those books and records to accomplish something else that was unlawful. Here, for instance, to violate state and federal election law. So the government's going to have to prove all of this. Me saying it on television is utterly meaningless. The government's going to have to prove this in the court of law by proof beyond a reasonable doubt to a unanimous jury. But that is exactly what they told the jury in their opening statement that they intended to do.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.